Hello and welcome to everybody for this week's Archives Live. I'm Samantha Mackey and I'm here with David Peters, head of the OSU Archives. David, how are you today?
I'm doing great.
Great, that's good to hear. So thank you all for joining us here in the DeBow room today. Tonight we're going to be unboxing some items from the archives. As usual, if you have any questions, you can go ahead and leave them in the comments and we'll read them live on the stream today. So David, can you tell us a little bit more about what we're going to be doing tonight?
So, Samantha, most of the materials we have in the archives are paper. Mm-hmm. They're documents, official records, correspondence, those kinds of things. We also have a number of photographs, but they're more standard, what we consider archival collections. But we also have things that are three-dimensional. They're objects. We call them ephemera, but they're things. And sometimes they would belong like in more of a museum context than you'd think of a traditional archive. But we have those materials here. And so we thought it might be fun to look at some of those kind of, for us, rare items or objects that we have in our collections. These things we also try to maintain, just like our paper, with appropriate containers. And so we will transfer them to archival acid-free containers. We'll take care of them as best we can. It's a little bit different on how we manage and handle them, but we try to treat them the same way as we would any kind of paper product. But these are just objects, and so we think some of them are kind of interesting, and we have probably thousands of them in our collections, and so we're just going to take a look at a few of them today. And since we just got through with the holidays and opening up Christmas presents, now we'll have some boxes we'll open up without bows today. So
great. So where would you like to begin?
Okay, so we're just going to start pulling some things here and taking a look at them. So here's a container. This is from the, I think it's, yes, Bonnie Smith. Bonnie was a student here during World War II, and she was active in student activities. During World War II, it gave women the first opportunity to have leadership positions. I think the Student Government Association president, the yearbook editor, and the newspaper editor were all women in 1943, and Bonnie served in one of those roles. We have some beanies in the collection, but this is Bonnie's beanie, Bonnie Smith's beanie, and so we have her beanie here, and some of them were autographed and stuff. Hers was not, but she kept it. It's a size 7, if you're interested. But there's a number of things that Bonnie saved, and I believe she gave them to Kent Sampson, first of all, and then Kent brought them over to us. Here's another item. So during the war, they still continue to have activities. This is from the co-ed prom of 1943. It's just a tin cup, but it was the party favor, and she kept it. And it's got the little orange and black ribbons on it. But this is the kind of little memorabilia that sometimes we try to retain from different collections. So this is probably going to make a lot of noise. So what I'm going to do is just kind of put it in here temporarily, and I'll repackage it properly when we get finished. So,
okay.
But that's from the Bonnie Smith collection from OAMC. Then we have a number of things from the Robert Cotton collection. And Mr. Cotton lived in Bartlesville. He was really interested in the Old West, and his interest expanded. Initially, he would start collecting things related to Buffalo Bill Cody and Pawnee Bill, and they'd have these touring groups. And then as that kind of expanded into an interest in the traveling circuses, and eventually into early American movies and film, especially Westerns. And so he collected a lot of material. And so here's just a set of gold-rimmed glasses. Here's a beaded bag from his collection. And some of these things were used as props in movies, and some of them were just things that he was interested in collecting. In the old days, and I don't need one of these, but here's a straight razor, and so if you want to see how they used to shave, here's a straight razor, and there's several of these, and many of them are in a fairly decent condition, and so we have cataloged all of these items, and can make them available for people to view. I'm trying to think of, here's some marbles. Most kids probably don't play with marbles anymore, but but there's a variety of different marbles, just a host of different things that Mr. Cotton collected. And here's an early cigarette lighter. And then there's some just unusual.
What is that?
It's a rock. But he had a description for it, and I can't remember if it was. I think it was from the head. I think it originally. It's got a groove here, and so it served as like a hammer kind of thing, or a striking tool.
Mm-hmm.
So it is a variety of stuff that we have. Here's a little carved animal. It's a metal safe for a little coin, kind of a piggy bank. You put the coins in here, and you could open up, and once you put your money aside, but state safe, but it's a little metal safe. So that's just, and we have, like I said, literally hundreds of items from Mr. Cotton. It's probably our most diverse collection of objects in the archives. And recently we did an exhibit on some of the materials that Mr. Cotton had provided to us. He also gave us a bunch of pictures. We have a bunch of photographs of especially early Western cowboy actors. And so that's one box of cotton. Let's see what else is in the next box of cotton. With Robert Cotton, everything is kind of a surprise. Little books. I'm not even sure what this is. It's hanging. It's a hanging plate of some kind. Let's see. This is copper ore. Yeah, he was also kind of a rock. It's a round stone. Little booklets, more rocks. Here's a fairly large crystal. Like I said, a very eclectic batch of material from Mr. Cotton. I think we got one more box. Let's see if we can make any discoveries in this last box from Robert Cotton, the Robert Cotton collection.
Before we move on to that box,
okay.
We have a question from Nina,
All right.
who would like to know, when do you know whether or not to handle an item with gloves?
Good question. Thank you, Nina. Oftentimes people have seen, I think, folks wearing white gloves in working in the archives world. And if we're dealing with photographs or things of that nature, we will wear gloves. There are oils on your skin. And so you try to avoid transferring those oils to items that may be damaged or jeopardized from that. And so we'll wear gloves at that point. If you're dealing with just regular paper, it's not bad to use your hands. In fact, sometimes gloves create a problem with people trying to turn a page, and they'll end up bending the page because they've got these gloves on. So we want to make sure you have clean hands when you're handling anything. You want to wear gloves if you're going to jeopardize the integrity of something. But like that rock is going to be oblivious to any possible oils I have on my hands. And I washed my hands right before we came on, so I'm sure I had clean hands, clean, dry hands. But yeah, you don't want to do anything that's going to damage something, and there are natural oils occurring in your hands, and you try to avoid that transferring to objects if it was going to harm them at all. But a lot of the things we're handling today, and if you notice, a lot of these things are in plastic bags, so I'm not pulling them out of the bags. This is a coupon book, a ration book, and so during the war. You would be rationed the amount of like gasoline that you could use, and so you would get these coupon books with these little stamps, and it would allow you to purchase a certain amount of material. And so it's kind of rare that someone both kept the unused ones, but then the little pouch, the ration book and token holder. But so it's the whole packet. So some people would carry these in their pockets, and as they were purchasing things that were being rationed, they would use that. Here's a set of this little pistol. I'm going to go ahead and pull it out. But it's a little handheld pistol. And I think this may have been one of the items that was used in a movie or something. Let's see. It's a little hatchet, tomahawk. I'm not sure. And this is, of course, not a. It's a replica. This is not an original. Here's kind of interesting. Also, during the war, during World War II, soldiers were oftentimes given cigarettes, and this is the little plastic carrying case that they had for their cigarettes. And so to have a package of Philip Morris cigarettes and unopened in its original case is also a little bit unusual. So it's just, like I said, it's a variety of material that Robert Cotton collected, and then his family was very generous in allowing us to provide a home for this material going into the future. So
yeah, there's a lot of different things in
that's
that
a lot of
collection,
different
it
things.
seems like.
Okay, let's see what we got here. So many options. I'm going to set this down.
Okay.
Okay. So this is from the Della Thomas collection. Della Thomas used to work in the library. She was the librarian in charge of the curriculum materials lab, which was materials for children, and so for school-age children. And she had a real interest in Alice in Wonderland. And so here's an example. These are little figurines. Here's the one of Alice, but she has a whole set of these little containers with figurines. And so there's the Mad Hatter in his container, so there's just hundreds of items in the Della Thomas. You know, people when they begin to collect things, oftentimes they just keep collecting. And so after Robert Cotton, the Della Thomas collection is probably our second largest batch. Now hers is almost exclusively Alice in Wonderland and Lewis Carroll. So there are decks of cards that have Alice and the characters from the story on here. There's tarot card deck.
Wow.
There's a little flip book. These flip books work, and so you can see how I don't know if you can tell.
Oh, right, like the animation.
Right,
flip
an
books.
animation. So like so the cat disappears. So actually, if you start at the front with the full cat, Cheshire cat, and then by the time you get the back, he slowly disappears to nothing. So anyway, there's just flip books. So that's probably enough for that one. And within the collection, there's more little. Here's the hair. So there's pins and I believe. Let's see if this is the. These are all styrofoam. And so it's just a box of styrofoam characters from Alice in Wonderland.
Yeah, there's a lot of them
And
in there.
yes, the whole box is just packed full. I don't want to get all of them out, but there's a chess set. There's a variety of cards. There's calendars. There's a series of cutouts for the figures. Let's see what's in here. And these are also the cutouts. So it is got to be one of the most complete collections of Alice in Wonderland's memorabilia anywhere.
It seems like it.
So,
So we've got another question from
Okay.
Anthony.
All right.
And he wants to know if you have a favorite item or collection. And then how do you organize things?
two excellent questions, Anthony. Well, so my favorite collection doesn't have very many objects in it, but it's Angie DeBoe's material. We have Angie DeBoe's, and it's mostly her research materials related to her books and her research and her instruction and teaching, but also some of her advocacy programs. She was involved with several things to try to work on ensuring, especially Native American rights in Alaska and other places. But so her collection is my favorite collection. But she does have some objects in it. In fact, we have, you can't see it right now, but on the windowsill in the Angie DeBoe room where we are at, there's a little box that has rocks from Egypt, that's supposedly from the base of the Great Pyramid. So,
That's cool.
you know, she, I guess, would collect little rocks, and she was there, and so she collected those. But she has objects in her collection too. A lot of these things were things that were given to her as gifts that then she retained. And then we have objects from her home. So we have some tables from her home. We have the chair she sat in for the portrait that's in the state capitol, both the rocking chair and the padded chair. So we have a number of objects from her too, but yeah, her collection is my favorite collection. So how do we organize material? So sometimes when collections come in, people are very methodical, and they've kind of created an order and a structure to that. Some collections kind of have a natural organization to them. It's just how things. So like we have a bunch of playing cards, we're going to put them all together. We have a bunch of like greeting cards, something like that. You know, they'd be grouped. A bunch of correspondence would be grouped. With objects, a little more difficult, but we try to figure out if there was an order. We try to retain that order. If the person has organized them in a certain way that seems logical, we try to keep that. And other times, we just have to sort through it and figure out the best way of managing it going forward. And so we try not to put things in one container that may jeopardize other things. And so like newsprint, you try to avoid putting in the same container with photographs because there's acid in the newsprint that will transfer to those photographs and may destroy them. You try to avoid just putting things that are going to compromise other things in that. You try to avoid putting fragile things in a box with rocks. So some of it's just common sense. But we try to create an organizational structure for the collection. And sometimes you have to kind of look at it's almost like you have to spread the whole collection out and look at what you've got and then try to figure out, okay, these things all make sense. And then sometimes invariably there's things kind of miscellaneous at the end you just kind of put together and say, we'll just describe this, and if you're looking for that, you're going to find it in that box. So let's see, let me put a few more things away here.
If you are just now joining us, this is Archives Live. We are unboxing items from the archives tonight. And if you have any questions, you can leave them in the comments and we will read them live on stream tonight.
Okay. Let's see, this is our other Della Thomas collection box. And I think there's over 50 boxes in this collection. So these are a little more obvious. You can see the hair and the Mad Hatter and the Queen.
There's a lot of them in there.
And so this is here's Alice. So all of your favorite characters, and the Cheshire, the cat. So these are the kinds of things that Della Thomas saved. She worked as a librarian, but also she and her husband and then son Peter had a bookstore, Caravan Books in Stillwater, and so she was always exposed to this kind of material, and she saved it, and we were blessed to have it. So we're gonna put all the characters back away now, but that's just another example of some of the things that we have in the Della Thomas.
So is
Alice in
the
Wonderland.
Della Thomas collection almost entirely Alice in Wonderland?
Yes.
Okay.
There may be a few outlying items, but 99% of it is Alice related, and from a variety of different, from England, from various places in Europe, various translations of Lewis Carroll's works, into French and Spanish, and just a variety of languages. And so it's quite an eclectic group of materials, but it's all related to Alice.
Okay, we have another question
Okay.
from Bonnie,
All
and
right.
she would like to know how you decide if a potential collection belongs in the OSU archives.
So usually there's some relationship to OSU. Della Thomas worked for the OSU Library for a number of years and has a strong connection to Stillwater in this area. And it was a unique collection, and so it fit. It just it's not like we normally collect Alice in Wonderlands, but it just
Right.
it fit because of her relationship to the institution. And usually there's some kind of tie to Oklahoma State University. The Bonnie Smith, that first little thing we had with her beanie and her little cup, she was a student here, and she was actively involved with the Alumni Association for a number of years. So usually there's a connection to OSU in some way by the donor or by the material itself. And we're going to look at some things that are exclusively OAMC. The beanie is OAMC, but there's other things we'll look at that are if they're OAMC, Oklahoma Agricultural Mechanical College, or OSU. There's a good chance we might want to at least explore the possibility of adding it to our materials. If it's outside, it becomes rarer. But if there's a connection somehow, we do collect items related to a military service, to public service. We have our women's archive, to natural resources and agriculture, and then entrepreneurship. So those are our collecting areas, and we're beginning to explore the possibility of collecting Native American authors and Native American works related to the groups that settled in Oklahoma. So either they were traditionally here in Oklahoma, or were moved into Oklahoma. So that's kind of a new area we're just getting started with. Let's see what we have here. Okay, so it's a little beat up and worn, but here is an. Let's see, unless this is the top. Here is an OSU letter sweater. And I'm not sure what sport. Sometimes they would be distinguished in a certain way. They'd have a football or a basketball. We could probably track down who the donor was and figure out what sport they lettered in. But that is an old OSU letter jacket.
About how old is it?
I'm guessing this is from the 40s or 50s,
Okay.
roughly speaking. And some of them, there are letter sweaters. So I'm not sure if there was a change or just a style, but we have both letter sweaters and letter jackets. So that's an example of a letter jacket. I'm going to be doing a lot of reboxing, Sam, when we get through getting this stuff all put away properly. But let's keep moving here. Let's see what's next on the. So, this is kind of a hooded sweatshirt. So yeah, it's Oklahoma A&M, and so this is oh my. So it's more than a sweatshirt. It's a full-length kind of robe.
Wow.
So I'm not sure, this may have been something like maybe the wrestlers would wear. But it's got the hood. This is, I guess he was number one. And then it's Oklahoma A&M. So that's a big one. So, okay, it's going to get I promise I will probably care for these later. So if you take that box, we've got a few more things like that. Oh, I think this is part of a band uniform. Yeah, these are the pants. They used to have more of a burnt orange. And so these are the trousers. And this may be let's see what more to that. Yep. And so then here's the jacket. So Cowboys, and then the fringe. So yeah, this was in our burnt orange days before we went to the brightest shade of orange. And let's see what we got here then. Oh, here's just another beanie. Beanies are a little rare in that usually there was a bonfire at the end of the year and they would destroy the beanies. They were freshmen and they were tired of wearing their beanies that they could destroy them. But a few people saved them, and this one happened to be signed by friends. It says Hi Frosh, Pat Rat Allen. I'm not sure, but beat OU. So they would put little things on here. So anyway, that's just another beanie. This is a robe of some kind, but I'm not sure what it was. I'd have to look at the documents to see if we can figure out why we saved that particular item. Okay, got that taken care of. Then this past about a little over a year ago, one of our colleagues at the OSU Library, David Oberhelman, passed away unexpectedly. But David was a collector of, all things related to The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings and Tolkien, J.R.R. Tolkien. And so he had an extensive collection of books, but he also had objects. And so here are just a few of them. These are fairly heavy. But he had these kind of scene items. From that series. And so we had a whole set of these. He had some things from the movies. There was a certain scene where there's a tile floor, and he had one of the tiles. It's a fairly large, it's almost like 3 feet by 3 feet, but it's 3 foot. But it's a tile that was used as a part of this tile floor. And so he had bid on and purchased one of those items. So there was several objects in David's material, and his brother Richard was very generous in donating these materials to us. And so it's kind of our way of keeping David's memory alive with some of the things he collected. And if it was related to J.R.R. Tolkien, we have a number of editions of the books, various time periods and different series. And it was very, very thoughtful of the family to present these items to us. And so we will try to take care of them for David.
And so once again, if you're just now tuning in, this is Archives Live, and I'm here with David Peters, head of OSU Archives. And tonight we are unboxing a few items from the archives. If you have any questions, you can leave them in the comments and we will read them live on stream tonight.
Do you have time for a few more? Just
yes.
Some real quick? Okay. So these are part of our dance card collection, and these are just some of them. We have dance cards in scrapbooks and other places, but dance cards were often handed out when like a sorority would have a dance. And so you'd have a card. This is from the Kappa Alpha Theta house, so it's in the shape of a kite, which is their symbol. And so this was from November 1st, 1929, held at the American Legion Hall here in Stillwater. And it would tell you who the chaperones were and how it was. The music was from the New Orleans Ramblers. The chaperones were Dean Stout, Dole Reed, Dole and Mrs. Reed. So anyway, but then eventually you got to the dances. And so they were numbered. So the first dance, second dance, third dance, and then young men could ask to dance with someone, and they'd say, well, the fourth dance isn't available, but I still have the fifth dance available. You want to dance then? Oftentimes they would try to get either the first dance or the last dance, but they would sign in then who they'd agreed to dance with for those dances. So that was the intent of the dance card and you try to fill your dance card. Sometimes they would be pre-filled. They knew somebody was coming and they wanted to make sure they had a dance reserved for them. Sometimes they wouldn't say necessarily. They'd fill in. If someone showed up that they hadn't expected, sometimes they would use a name of someone that didn't even exist, just so they could say either, "Oh, I'm sorry, my card's full," or they could scratch it out and, "Oh, I've got room now for for you." So, but dance cards, there was a lot of politics involved with your dance card.
So how long were the dance cards part of campus? Like, how long were they around?
So we have dance cards from the late teens, 1919, 1918. This is from 1927 all the way into the 30s and 40s. By the 50s, they start to decline. Really, the heyday is the 20s and 30s, and when you have dance cards. And so this box is just filled with dance cards for various events. I'm seeing dates here: 1930, 1926. These are 27, 29. So that's kind of the vintage of these, but they extend from the late teens into the early 50s. So dance cards is one of our collections. I don't know if we have a chance. This little unit here, all items coming into the OSU library.
It's very heavy.
It's very heavy. But this was used to mark the item as belonging to the OSU library. And so there are a series of kind of like needles in here that will make an impression. And what it says is Library, A&M College, Stillwater, Oklahoma. And so if they got a book in, they would put the first page of the book into this stamp and press it down, and then it would be permanently stamped with that. For a while, I believe there was a kind of a seal that would create an impression, like Notary Republics used to use, and to create that. But this is old. I think it's probably from the 1890s when we first started accepting things into the OSU library. This is not archivally correct. You don't want to punch holes in stuff anymore, but it was a way of marking items that belong to the library at A&M College. So that's an older item. And then I'm going to scoot this item over here. This is from Henry Iba. Mr. Iba was a former athletic director at OSU. He's most known for being our basketball coach for a long period of time. And of course, our current Gallagher Iba Arena is a part named for him now. But he also served as coach of the Olympic basketball team for several Olympics. And this is his Olympic jacket from one of his Olympics. And so here's his jackets that we have. Recently, it's been on loan to another archive. They had it on display for a while, but it's the jacket he wore in the Olympics. And so we have a few, I think, kind of special items like that.
That's really cool.
So we'll put that away. And if you have time for one more.
We do.
All right. So as most of us know, Frank Eaton is the gentleman on which we base our mascot, Pistol Pete. And Frank Eaton was a blacksmith and worked in Perkins, Oklahoma for the almost last half of his life. And he, while he was a blacksmith, he made things. And so this is a set of spurs that were made by Frank Eaton for his friend Rolla Goodnight. Rolla and Frank were kind of cowboys together in the early years, and this is a set of spurs that was made by Frank. It's F-E for Frank Eaton, 2, and then I can't tell, it's R something Goodnight. And so he stamped it, Rolla, RS Goodnight. So I guess if Rolla lost him, somebody could return it to him. But this is a set of spurs that were made in Perkins. The gentleman who gave these to us lives in California. I believe it was his grandfather who knew Frank and was from Perkins and had received these at some point in time. And then he, several years ago, asked if we would be interested in having them. And we said we certainly would, and he sent them to us. So here's a set of spurs made by Frank Eaton for his friend and fellow cowboy, Rolla Goodnight. So
Great. So we have a few questions.
Oh, all right.
Bonnie would like to know if items are loaned out from the OSU archives often.
I wouldn't say often, but we do have things that are on loan,
Okay.
and usually we restrict the amount of time which they can be loaned. So it's usually like a 6-month or a year period, and we always try to make sure that they're going to be displayed in appropriate settings and used appropriately when they're on display. And every museum or archive we've worked with have always been very accommodating, and we try to be accommodating too if we borrow things. And so. But yeah, we periodically loan things. There's special paperwork we fill out, and when everyone signs off on it, then we loan items for short periods of time. Sometimes it can extend depending upon the need for longer than a year, but usually it's within a year, so we expect the items to come back. And usually they're on exhibit for just a limited amount of time. Most exhibits aren't permanent exhibits, and so they simply want to borrow things. And so Iba's jacket, I believe, was it was a Oklahoma Sports Hall of Fame, I think. It was in Oklahoma City, and so it was very applicable, the jacket, to what they were trying to do. So yeah, we're happy to loan things if they can meet certain standards of care. But that doesn't happen a lot, but it does happen occasionally.
Okay. And then there is a question from Cody, who asked, why don't you build a museum and put all of this stuff in it for public to see?
Well, Cody, a museum would be very expensive. If they can find the funding for that, I'm sure it would be a wonderful opportunity for not only to display the things we have in the archives, but there's a number of collections across campus. Zoology has collections. Entomology has large collections of insects. I mean, we have collections all over campus. A museum would be a wonderful way of displaying those, but it'll take some fundraising to get that done. And but the new museum, OSU Museum of Art, I think is an excellent example of efforts to bring art from around campus together in one location in an exhibit area. And so there's certainly, I think, be an interest on my part to participate in anything, but it would be quite an investment. And then you have to not only have to provide a museum a space for display, but a place to store all of it. You can't display all of this all the time. But sure, if Cody wants to head this up, let me know. We'll put him in contact with the right people.
Okay, and then one last question before we go. William would like to know, what are some of the most surprising items you've received at the archives, and then how can people see these items for themselves?
So let me answer the second part first. They can come visit us. Most of the items we have are in the main building. We do have a number of items, though, that are stored off-site from this facility here, the central campus. And so if they can let us know beforehand what they would like to see and when they might be coming, that gives us a little time to pull those items, especially if they're from one of the other locations. But they're welcome to see them in our reading room here on the second floor of the Edmond Lowe Library at the East End. So we will make them available. But the sooner they let us know and what they're trying to look at, we'll try to bring it here for them to view. And we will work with them. If there's any special handling considerations, we'll work with them on that. So the first part was the most interesting. Oh, golly, there have been a variety of things. When the OSU archives inherited the OSU, well, there used to be an OSU museum. It was kind of a small storage area on the west side of campus. And they had a number of collections, and we received some of those. And within that, though, there were some carvings from Africa that I thought were fascinating. Two of the more unusual objects were someone had converted the feet of elephants into a trash can, and so it was odd. I'm not recommending this. I'm just saying it was a bit strange, and I'm not sure why so they took the skin of the 2 feet of an elephant and then made a container, and so it was odd. But the carvings, I thought some of them were really, really fascinating, and there's some interesting stuff in those materials. A lot of cultural material that had been collected over the years, and it but it's currently being housed off-site. So.
Okay. Actually, one last question.
Oh,
before we
okay,
go.
one more.
What is this behind me?
Oh, okay. So in the old days, if you wanted to take something that was small and then make a larger version of it, so you wanted to scale it up, now you just expand it, you just blow it up, right? Well, in the old days, this I think it's called a planograph, something like that. But what it would do is it's got a mechanism. So if you're tracing something here that's, let's say, only an inch across, you could trace it, and the arm extends out, and you create something over there that's a foot across. And so you can set the scale, so you can make it like 1 inch to 2 inches, or 1 inch to 10 inches, or whatever. But that's how you could create something both smaller to bigger, or bigger to smaller. And so it was a way of creating not a mirror image, because you weren't making a copy, but you were making a scaled version of something, either bigger or smaller. And we have that from the geography department. It's quite a contraption.
It looks like it.
And it takes up quite a bit of space once you get it set up. So we have a few items like that. I noticed Engineering South has a number of items that are kind of similar related to engineering, but that's one of the few things we have from the geography department.
Great. Well, David, thank you for chatting with us today. And thank you to you, our viewers, for tuning in. If you liked this video, please feel free to like it and share it. You can check out the Archives Facebook page for more information, photos, and posts. There's videos, there's archive videos on OState TV and on YouTube. And then don't forget to check out our Facebook page and tune in next month for our next Archives Live. Thanks again for tuning in. See you next month.